Welcome to the Sheff United Way. My name is Hal, and alongside me for the first time in blooming ages, it's Nick. When was the last time we spoke together on a video?
God, it must be a long time ago. I think it was probably before the start of the season, which was a long time ago, probably over 6 months ago.
We nearly got all the way to the end of the season, and realistically, the season is over. So here we are back together. We're going to talk contracts in this video. Whenever you're watching, please like, subscribe, the stuff that we always say. Contracts, if you ask me, Nick, they're not worth the paper they're written on. Although I suppose nowadays they'll be written on a Word document and signed with an electronic signature like in the future. We're going to go through the players that Sheffield United have running out of contract, and going to include some of the loans that are going to end as well. So I'm going to go through them. Nick, I'm going to want your thoughts, and of course the comments below. We want your thoughts as well. This is as much about you. In fact, it's more about you than it is about us. Let's start with the goalkeepers. Adam Davies.
He's got to go, hasn't he? He's got to go. Eventually, the man has got to go. But I still think he'd be a decent goalkeeper for a League One side. Maybe he could be the Simon Moore that we had in our League One promotion season. For somebody else, who knows? But yeah, I think he's got to go.
What about any stock you put in the vibes, the dressing room harmony, the sick beats, the clean sheets? He's clearly very popular.
Is he? Is he?
Okay, maybe I've just made that up. But okay, vibe not included. Let's just, so we know going forward in future contract negotiations. While we're talking keepers, before we get to the main man, Jordan Amissa. Are you going to miss him?
Yes, very much so. And I loved that pun there. Very, very well done. Jordan Amissa. It's hard because I don't think I've ever seen him play football in real life. So my real eyes have not laid eyes on his real eyes, if you like. So I think just the fact that young goalkeeper, he's clearly got to where he is right now because he's an okay keeper, is huge in every sense of the word. The man is a man mountain. So obviously he's got the physical attributes to be a goalkeeper. So without me seeing him play properly, and he's only had kind of a few minutes under his belt for the Blades, I'd say maybe keep. I don't know. Maybe keep as third choice keeper. But if they really feel like he's good enough to do the step up, maybe he goes out on loan though.
He needs more loan experience. Burton Albion, wasn't it, that he went on loan before?
Yeah, I think he conceded quite a lot of goals and then they benched him. So I don't think that went too well. But hopefully another League One team and he has a full season under his belt. That'd be nice.
Yeah, kicks on. Maybe he's got a high ceiling, and not just because he is 7'3". Let's talk about Wes. League One Wes. Are we crazy?
Are we crazy?
Would we be crazy to let Wes go, or is it because Wes has hinted that he wants to go, that now is the time?
I don't think this is really my opinion. I think this is just what's going to happen. But I feel like Wes will go because we've paid money for a goalkeeper and we will try and play him into form. I don't think he's necessarily been out of form. He's just conceding loads and loads of goals that mostly have just not been his fault. So 𝗍𝗿𝗀𝗏, I think, will be our goal. Unless he makes a load of monumental errors, I think that he will be our goalkeeper next season. I think Wes will feel like he's a top-end championship goalkeeper and he'll want to leave. But actually, I still think Wes has got a Sheffield United career in him, and I think he could easily be our goalkeeper next season for me.
Most saves in the Premier League. Doesn't really tell the whole story. James Trafford is also up there in those statistics, and that says all you need to know. But it's strange, isn't it, that we're talking about Wes leaving, and realistically, we are talking as if Sheffield United are in the Championship next season. I think that's right to talk like that, as much as I do still have a little faint glimmer of hope that we might survive. Wes has already proved himself in the Championship, and yet the general feeling among Sheffield United fans is now is the time to say goodbye to Wes Foden. And I think he could look back on his Sheffield United career with fondness, and also he's done himself proud in the majority of his performances.
Yeah, completely agree. The man, I'm not going to go as far as saying he's a Blades legend, but he's got us promoted to the Premier League, and there's not many goalkeepers that can say that. So that's nice to say.
And is it possible that 𝗍𝗍𝗶𝗏 just has August hands? And we've seen that before. Aaron Ramsdale, a great example. He had August hands for several months, but then he turned it around.
Where did August hands come from? Have you just made this up, or is this
early on in the season? Early on in the season, you get it right. You're not quite fresh.
No, we all get it.
It takes a few weeks. I'm not sure everyone does.
We get it.
We'll move on. This one is not an easy one to get into because it's a player that I think all of us have a soft spot for. 𝗏𝗏 Basham. Now, we've got to talk about the fact that this season has been, well, a disaster because of a horrific leg break at Fulham. One of the club's record appearance holders, 388 appearances for the Blades. 3 promotions as well to Bash's name. But what's your decision?
You've built that up for me to say 𝗏𝗏 Basham leaves Sheffield United. And I'm going to shock you. I would keep him for another season. One more season. He's not leaving. He's not leaving.
Wow. Pop your comments below. What do you think, 𝗏𝗏 Basham?
Let me explain. So, I see Anel leaving next season. I see us still playing 5 at the back, in all honesty. And I think that we've got so many left-footed centre-backs that we need to balance that up a little bit. 𝗏𝗏 Basham, if we stayed in the Premier League, obviously would have had to have gone. I don't know. I don't think he's going to be a starter. But with 𝗏𝗏 Basham, you know that he's going to come back and he wants to play football. He'll play football until he's 50 years old. I am sure of it. Well, I'm not sure of it. I don't want to go on record saying that I'm sure of it. But I think that 𝗏𝗏 Basham's still got one more year left.
This channel, it's worn you down that you need to clarify that.
No,
says it all.
It's probably less the channel and more Twitter, to be honest, man.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's an awful place. But it's interesting with Bash because, I'd love Bash to stick around. We don't know how he's going to be following that injury. So he might even have to make that decision himself, as he sort of alluded to in a recent interview. But ideal world, you're saying, Bash sticks around and we'll go from one right-footed defender to another, John Eagan.
John Eagan stays for me, 100%. You already know that. You know that I love John Eagan. Love John Eagan, not just because his missus watches the Sheff United Way, but also that I just think that maybe he's not the best captain in the world, because I've heard that he leads by example rather than being that Chris Morgan motivator. And he has had, he had a bad start to his Premier League his Premier League season this season. And I hope that he doesn't carry that on once he comes back from his injury. I think John Egan's still a fantastic defender. And I think that, I'd give him another year, if not a couple of years.
Some Blades, I'm sure, will disagree with that. There's been talk before his injury that he'd been out of form for a little while. Let us know what you think about John Eagan. We're talking right-footed defenders. We're going to stick with another one. We're actually going to get into a bit of a right wing-back decision to be made here. It's a stick or twist, both or just one. We'll begin with a great servant for Sheffield United. It's hard to really think back and believe that there was at one point an argument about Kieran Freeman or this man, George Baldock, being the number one at right wing-back. He can also play right-back. He can also play right centre-back. Furious George. Thoughts?
Kieran Freeman, because he scored loads of goals, obviously. Oh, right. Okay. You mean this season.
What would you do with the star man?
I think a lot of people are going to have sort of recency bias when it comes to George, because George has been injured for a while. I think George will have a fantastic rest of the season. Yes, he might be coming to that sort of age where he's picking up more injuries. I love George to bits. I would want to see George end his career at Sheffield United in many, many years to come. I just feel for George, he needs to move on himself. And I think to cement his place in that Greek side, to maybe play some Champions League football, he possibly goes to Greece. I think that It's been said in the past couple of years that Greek teams are interested in him, and I think for his career, he possibly should leave. But I would love to see George stay at Bramall Lane because I just think he's a fantastic defender. He still is. Uh, if only his attacking game was a little bit stronger, George would be at Bramall Lane for the rest of his career.
Olympiacos have been linked with him seemingly forever. Whether he deserves time in the sun to end his career could be a different argument, and even all Blades fans would wish him well in that respect. And he'd be going there for, as you've mentioned, his ambitions to further his international career. Although I think he's fairly popular with the Greek setup. He wouldn't necessarily need to move to Piraeus to achieve that. Port City of Athens, from where Olympiacos are. I've actually been to their stadium, but I think if he was going to go to Greece, that would be the team he would go to. He would go with my blessing, but I'll just add, I don't want George to leave. I would re-sign, definitely.
100%.
This one's, I think, pretty easy. We'll probably all be unanimous on this one. Jaden Bogle.
Yeah, I don't know why that hasn't been signed yet, to be perfectly honest. Obviously, him and George are always going to be battling it out, and I don't see George as a right centre-back. So I think you need to make that decision yourself, whether you go George or you go Jaden. But for me, Jaden's been much, much, much better since Chris Wilder's been his manager, or been his manager
Definitely.
for the second time. And I just, I think, he's had a couple of bad moments, not picking up his man or backheeling the ball into the back of his own net as of late. But that's what comes with the pressures of the Premier League. You're playing against fantastic players, and I think next season for us it'll be very, very good. So Jaden, sign the ting, as the kids say.
Sign it. He's only 23 as well. Would be a real shame to lose him. We brought him in with Max Lowe, and that's my next conundrum for you to try and.
There's no conundrum there. There's just not. There's no conundrum. Max Lowe is just there. You know that. He's just there. No, for me, Max Lowe had an opportunity when he came back from Forest. He had a decent spell at Forest. He had a decent spell for us last season with us getting promoted. It just never really kicked on for me. He started off the season, I thought, with us really badly. And then he came back from that, and he was week in, week out. He was good.
Do you remember that Watford away game? And I'd actually called him out and I'd said that performance was unacceptable. And then he spoke himself about the fact that his head wasn't quite, I'm paraphrasing, I can't remember the exact quote, but you remember what I'm saying. He wasn't quite mentally there because I think he probably thought maybe he could sign for Forest permanently, and maybe that would have worked out better for him, back in the area as well, because of course we signed him from Derby County, not a million miles away. And there seems to be many players and managers who've played for both those two clubs. I think many will probably agree that we would say thank you very much, Max, and wish him well for the rest of his career. And he may well kick on and make us all look a bit stupid and have a really, really, well, he may. And also, I'll just caveat all of this by saying that when we're recording this, these contracts haven't been signed. You might be watching this at a point where some of them have. I'm sure people can understand that it's not live. Rees, Norrington, Davies. Now this one hurts because you feel like had he not been injured, Rees is in a strong bargaining position to actually say, hang on, I probably deserve more, and I clearly would be playing international football. I would have gone to a World Cup had an injury that was totally out of my hands not happened. Now he's got another one. You really feel for the lad because there's some player there.
Yeah, I've never been the biggest of Rees Norrington Davies fans. I think that he's got a great engine on him. He's a decent defender. Don't think he's quite good enough going forward just yet, but he's still a young lad, and I still would have liked to have seen him at Bramall Lane for quite a while to see if that player does emerge that I'd like to see. But it's really difficult now. That's a second really big injury in 2 seasons. And the first one, he only just came back from that recently as well. So it was a long old injury, that first one. And now he's picked up his second one just before potentially signing a new contract.
Crucial age as well. He's 24. He'll be 25 in April. And that is that stage when you think, right, he needs to cement a position, knuckle down and say, this is my club, this is my position. And actually, I think fully fit, Rees Norrington Davies probably does play regularly for Sheffield United. I would say certainly next season, but who knows when he's actually going to not only get fully fit, but then maintain that for a period of time.
Yeah, I know, and he's got injured at a really, really tough time for him. I would potentially lean towards letting him go because I feel like we've got a lot of left wing backs. Yes, if we let Max Lowe go, that's one less. I just feel like we've got a lot of average left wing backs, in my opinion, and we need a really good one. We've had a lot of really good ones in the past, and yeah, with Rees's injury worries recently, I think it might be time to just look elsewhere. Maybe.
When you say a lot, I can only think of 3, but yes, Wayne Quinn. You're thinking of Enda Stevens, and then maybe Derek Geary.
Wayne Quinn.
Yeah.
Enda Stevens.
Yeah. So you've just said the same ones, okay?
And Gary
Oh.
Naismith, Andy Taylor,
right?
Jean-Francois Lessinel. What? How many more do you want me to say?
Okay, here's another one. Ben Osborne. I mean, if there is ever a player that divides the fan base, it is Ben Osborne, the human Swiss Army knife. What are you saying about Benjamin Jared Osborne? Is it Jared?
Yes.
You know that.
I knew that.
We both know that.
I'd written that on a script recently, so that's the reason why I know it. You know my thoughts on Ben Osborne.
And you know mine.
And I know yours. And I actually think, I'm going to shock you here, that I think we should keep Ben Osborne.
You have shocked me, but in a very pleasant way.
But you know why? It's going to be that Swiss Army knife ness to Ben Osborne, where he can play lots of different positions. And I think you can always just count on him to do a good job, and especially in the Championship. If he does leave Sheffield United, I don't see him going any lower than the Championship. So yeah, I think
agreed.
We've got a good all-round player that we should really keep around for as long as possible, unless we make that jump to the Premier League and stay there for a few years.
If we start playing with wide midfielders, I think his best position is left midfield, which really for his career. I do, but for his career, staying at Sheffield United, you could argue, doesn't really make sense. So I just want him to stay because I think he's got a really good football brain, and I really relate to players that you can just guarantee are going to give you everything they've got, even though they might not have that much, if you know what I mean. At least I know he's going to try. Can't say that with everyone. Oliver Norwood, option for a 1-year extension, 233 appearances at time of recording for Sheffield United, wins more tackles than many seem to realise. I think Ollie puts himself about as much as a player with limited pace can, and he doesn't have pace, he never has, but he offers vision. You know that long range of passing, his ping. Sometimes his set pieces are good, sometimes they're not. Hard to find a player, though, in the mould of Oliver Norwood, in the Championship, that's ready-made, already proven, has ability at that level, and that Sheffield United could afford. And like I say, an option to just simply extend. So I think I've made my case clear. Oliver Norwood.
Yep, stay. He's got to for me. The experience, he's just got to stay, hasn't he? I don't think he'll play every game next season. He might go through a kind of 5-10 goal game period where he does play week in, week out, because we know he's got that in his locker. And if he's got players around him that's going to do the dirty work for him, and he can just sit in midfield and swing his right boot out to the right, out to the left, then he still can do it. But yeah, I think he's going to be limited next season. But I don't think he'll mind that.
Stay another day / season. There will be Blades fans watching this who are thinking total overhaul is the only way to go. But like Nick's just said there, he doesn't have to play every game, and you do need players in your squad. You've got to have more than 11 players, and it'd be very, very handy to have, I think, tried and tested Championship players available. Let's get to strikers before we look at the loans. It's another one where I think he divides the fan base. You know who I'm going to say? Oliver McBurnie.
Pal.
Do I need to respond to that?
Yeah, you can do if you want.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. Ollie McBurnie, pal. So, okay. I would like to see McBurnie stay. He'll be on a lot of money. You know that. So I don't know how they'll be able to sort that out contract-wise.
There are rumours, aren't there? We've already seen on social media. I think Alan Nixon has said that he's going to explore his options. And that might be because, I mean, we don't know, but he might have been offered a contract at Sheffield United, and he might have thought, maybe I'll just test the water and see if I can get a little bit more elsewhere. He's publicly a Rangers fan because he comments when they're playing games and lets that be known. It wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility that he'd go to Scotland.
Yeah, possibly. He is a Rangers fan. He loves the club. Yeah, I could see him doing that because, it's... I don't want to be disrespectful because I know that you're a Scotsman from birth,
I
as
was
well as
born in
being a
Scotland.
Southerner.
I'm Scottish
I
because I
can't
was
win
born
here.
there, and
When I
that's
say
it.
you're a Southerner, you're like, I'm born in
I'm
Scotland.
not a Southerner.
And now when I
I'm
throw
not
a
a
Scotsman
Southerner.
at you, you're like, no, I'm not. I'm a Southerner.
I've never said I'm a Southerner. You may keep throwing that bit in.
No, anyway, back on to Ollie McBurnie. I would like to see him at the club next season. However, if we did decide to go a different direction, I understand why, and I think sometimes you do need to change it up because for me, Ollie McBurnie is a great footballer. He's very, very good at what he does. He quite clearly showed last season that he can score goals in the Championship. He showed that for Swansea as well. He's had a lot of injuries, which is always going to be a problem, which a lot of these players that we're talking about have had injuries as well, lots of them. So maybe that's the reason why we go in a different direction. But yeah, I'd like to see him in a Sheffield United shirt next season.
Yeah, if he isn't in a Sheffield United shirt next season, I guarantee he goes probably the rest of his career without a red card or a long-term injury.
Yeah,
We'll just look at what could have happened, and obviously for him, I hope for that. Next one, another player that Alan Nixon mentioned has already apparently decided he's going to explore his options. Daniel Jebson. Will he or won't he sign a new contract? Of course, there was that mysterious reason that he's been out. Some have suggested illness, but it's been a wasted season for Daniel Jebson. One, of course, that as a youngster started with such promise after that goal at Goodison Park. What are your thoughts on Jebbo?
I'm really disappointed because after that Everton game, and then the rest of that season, in that first Premier League season, I felt like Jebbo had it. And I felt like the season after, he was going to go and score loads of goals in the Championship. Loads of people disagreed and said he needed a loan lower down, which happened. And then he scored those goals. And then since then, it's just not clicked for him for whatever reason. There's been injuries in there. He's had time away from the team because of players in front of him that have just been better than him. But he's come in, he's scored a goal against Hull, and it looked like he's going to kick on. It's just never really kicked on. And actually, 𝗲𝗚𝗀𝗓, for me, had jumped him. Which season was it now? I think it was the first season back in the Championship. 𝗲𝗚𝗀𝗓 that season jumped him, and he was getting game time over Jebbo. So, yeah, if you ask me to choose between 𝗲𝗚𝗀𝗓 and Jebbo, I'm choosing 𝗲𝗚𝗀𝗓 every single day of the week.
Ideally, I'd like Jebson to remain. I think there's still so much promise there, and it'll go to tribunal if he does leave because of his age. But it would be a shame, and it's also a shame we haven't really got a chance to see him, like you say, kick on. Now, loans. This is of course players that aren't ours, but players we're either going to say goodbye to or hopefully see again. Let's start with Ayso Llorente, option to buy. Would you exercise that option?
There's absolutely no way that we see him in a Sheffield United shirt next season. He's been mostly really bad, occasionally okay. But I feel like if he wouldn't have been here this season, things wouldn't be much different.
Well, we might have taken a point against Manchester City.
That's a good point. And it would have been a good point as well.
It'd have been a great point. It probably would have kicked us on from that and transformed our entire season. So, Ayso, no, I'm kidding, of course. Not all down to him. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't exercise that option to buy. I'd be surprised if it is, but you never know. Sometimes you see things in training that we don't see, and he might be a championship winger. I think he could be. I'm not necessarily convinced all the time defensively, but he's got wheels for feet, and I like that. I think we know this one. We'd love it, but it's not going to happen. James McAtee, his loan will end, and you'd assume he won't be coming back.
No, I think he'll get another loan in the Premier League next season, and then I think Man City will make a decision on whether he's going to be a City player or not.
City.
But yeah, he's not coming back, is he? Ever, unfortunately.
Oh, never say never. You just never know in football. Another one that I think is unlikely any Blades will say they'd like to see in a red and white shirt again, Mason Hallgate.
I'll be honest, right? In the
Be
championship,
honest.
next season, he could do a job. And especially if we do let Bash go, and for some reason we manage to get his wages way down, because I know he's on a massive contract to Everton. There's a possibility. There's a possibility.
I think it's just that wage. That honestly, I think the wage is going to be so difficult to sort of negotiate. Why would he drop that?
Why would he drop that? And actually, there's probably better defenders out there, or at least defenders at a similar level that we could sign. So, yeah, I'm never going to say never on this one. I don't think he'll be terrible in the championship, but at the same time, yeah, I'm not going to lose any sleep if we never see him in red or white shirt ever again.
Didn't pull up any trees at Southampton, and after that red card against Brighton, I think that's got to play something into the thoughts of what I was saying. Blades fans wouldn't be sad not to see him back. I think that those sort of things are things you have to take into account. I mean, that red card.
Charlie Good. Had Charlie Good written all over it, didn't it?
Yeah, it's a very good comparison. Let's finish with, and I want to finish on this player because I think there's something to talk about. Br Diaz. His loan will come to an end, and the Stoke-born left winger / striker, formerly of Nottingham Forest, Blackburn Rovers, but Villarreal. Now, the fee to sign him, you'd imagine would be high. What, maybe 10 million, something like that. And I guess there's injury concerns as well.
Yeah, I love Br Diaz. I think he's been a fantastic signing. If we'd have kept him fit the whole time, I think we'd have probably got a little bit more from him. Even at the weekend when he came back from injury against Bournemouth, he just looked a step above everybody else, and he just carries the ball so well, and he's such a great outlet. He's not done anything for Villarreal. I think they would be happy to let him go. But yeah, do we have the money? Is he somebody that we would want to sign next season? Maybe Chris Wilder is dying to sign him.
Could be, and you never know how much money we're going to have to play with. You don't know who's going to leave, and we'll maybe look at videos on who could go and who we could bring in the future. Probably not really worth talking about Cameron Archer, because that obligation, if Sheffield United are relegated, to return to Villa, likelihood is that Sheffield United will go down, as much as it pains me to say it. So you'd think he would go back to Villa, and they may look to ship him off. But again, you're talking about money. I don't think we'd be able to afford him. And would they loan him out to a championship club when he's had Premier League this season?
I think they could, because he's not pulled up too many. He's been very good in a couple of games, but also he's been in and out of a lot of games and kind of not done a lot at times. So I can see him going back on loan to a championship club. I could also see him going on loan to a Premier League club, but I can't imagine anyone's fighting for his signature right now. But I'd like to see him back on loan at Sheffield United next season, but I can't imagine having to buy him back with this whole obligation, and then us getting him loaned back. I don't think that's going to happen, because Aston Villa will seem to be kind of giving him back to us, having bought him back. I just don't think.
Yeah, it would be odd. I think it'd be a transfer situation that's never happened before. But it doesn't mean it couldn't happen, and I think he could tear up the championship next season. So as you say, you would like to see it. But
I'd love to see him back at Bramall Lane next season. He would absolutely tear it apart, like you say.
That concludes our contracts video. We've been through all of them. I don't think we forgot anyone.
I'm sure they'll let us know in the comments if we have.
I was going to say, if we did, we'd definitely hear about it. Please let us know your thoughts on anything and everything we have discussed in the comments below. Please hit like, please subscribe. Also, check out our audio podcast. It's free.